They smiled to my face and called me family. Behind my back, my own mother and sister decided I wasn't smart enough to run the company I created. One overheard conversation changed everything. Because when the people closest to you underestimate you, hell hath no fury like a woman who finally wakes up. It was a quiet Thursday evening in Austin, the kind where the Texas heat finally surrendered to a soft breeze drifting through the open windows of Solano Events studio. The lights in the main hall had been dimmed for hours. Only the soft glow from my laptop screen lit the corner office I had built with my own hands. 12 years. 12 years of turning raw grief into something beautiful after Dad passed. I had poured everything into this place. Late nights sketching floral arches, weekends sourcing the perfect linens, tears hidden behind smiles while I made other people's dreams come true. I was supposed to be finalizing the timeline for the Harrington wedding this weekend. Instead, my fingers hovered over the keyboard as exhaustion pulled at my shoulders. That's when I heard it. The conference speakerphone in the small meeting room next door had been left on. A low, familiar hum of voices carried down the hallway. Mom's voice, and Lila's. I froze. Something in their tone made my stomach tighten. Not the usual chatter about centerpieces or guest lists. This was different, sharper, more intimate. I should have walked away. I should have closed my door and minded my own business. But my feet wouldn't move. "We need to move fast," Mom was saying, her voice calm but edged with urgency. "Reid Carver is ready to sign. He'll take the majority stake. We can finalize the transfer by the end of next month." My breath caught. Lila laughed softly, that light, dismissive laugh I had heard 1,000 times growing up. "It's perfect, honestly. Blair won't see it coming. She's so wrapped up in the pretty details. Flowers, lighting, those Instagram-worthy moments. She's never been good with the real numbers anyway." The words landed like ice water down my spine. Mom sighed almost fondly. "Exactly. Blair is wonderful at making things look magical, but running a real business, understanding contracts, valuations, actual growth, that's never been her strength. She's our dreamer. Always has been." Another soft chuckle from Lila. "She'll be upset at first, but she'll get over it. We're doing what's best for the company, and for the family." I stood there in the half-dark hallway, one hand pressed against the cool wall to steady myself. My heart hammered so loudly I was sure they could hear it through the speakerphone. My mind raced, fragments of memories flashing unbidden. All the times I had covered for Lila when she missed deadlines, all the nights I stayed late so Mom could rest, every sacrifice I made after Dad died so this company could survive and then thrive. And now, this. They were planning to hand over the heart of everything I had built to Reid Carver, a smooth-talking investor who had been circling us for months without even telling me, without a single conversation. My chest ached with a pain so sharp it felt physical. Betrayal from strangers is one thing, but from your own mother and sister, it cuts deeper than any knife. I wanted to burst into that room. I wanted to scream, to demand explanations, to make them look me in the eyes and repeat those words. But something held me back, a cold, quiet voice in the back of my mind whispering, "Not yet." My hands trembled as I slowly backed away, careful not to let my heels click on the polished concrete floor. I slipped into my office, closed the door with barely a sound, and sank into my chair. The laptop screen blurred in front of me. Tears burned at the corners of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here, not now. This wasn't just about the company. This was about every time they had smiled at me while quietly deciding I wasn't capable. Every gentle pat on the shoulder that really meant, "Stay in your lane, Blair." Every assumption that I was the artistic one, and therefore the lesser one. The unexpected revelation hit me harder than I could have imagined. In that single overheard conversation, the foundation I thought was solid cracked wide open, and in the silence that followed, a strange new feeling began to stir beneath the hurt. Not just anger, something colder, something sharper, something that felt dangerously like clarity. This story is about what happens when the people closest to you underestimate you the most. and how that very underestimation can become the greatest power you never knew you had. Because sometimes, the deepest betrayal doesn't break you. It finally wakes you up. The door to my office clicked shut behind me, and the world outside seemed to vanish. I stood there in the near darkness, the only light coming from the faint blue glow of my laptop screen. My legs felt weak. I sank slowly into the leather chair, the one I had picked out myself the year we signed our biggest contract yet. My hands rested on the desk, palms down, as if trying to anchor myself to something solid. But nothing felt solid anymore. The words kept echoing in my head over and over. Blair only knows how to make things pretty. She's never been good with the real numbers. She'll get over it. Each repetition cut a little deeper. My chest tightened until breathing became difficult. I pressed my fingers against my eyes, willing the tears not to come, but they slipped through anyway, hot, silent, and unstoppable. How long had this been going on? I thought back to the months after Dad died. I was only 24 then, barely out of design school, but I had stepped up without hesitation. While Mom fell apart and Lila retreated into her own grief, I was the one who stayed late, who learned how to read contracts, who negotiated with vendors when money was tight. I gave up my own dreams of opening a small studio in Europe. I gave up relationships, vacations, even my health some nights when I pushed through migraines just to keep the lights on. All so this company could survive. All so they could survive. And now, this. A wave of raw injustice washed over me. My shoulders began to shake. For a moment, the anger felt so overwhelming I thought I might scream. I wanted to march back into that meeting room, slam the door open, and demand how they could do this to me, to the daughter and sister who had carried them for 12 long years. But I didn't move. Something deeper than rage held me in place. A quiet, trembling fear. Fear that if I confronted them now in this raw state, I would only confirm what they already believed, that I was too emotional, too soft, too artistic to handle real business. I couldn't give them that satisfaction. Instead, I sat there in the dark, letting the storm inside me rage. Memories flashed like lightning. Mom's tired smile the day we landed our first celebrity wedding, Lila hugging me after we pulled off the impossible timeline for the Rivera event, the three of us toasting with cheap champagne in this very studio when we finally turned a profit. Had it all been an illusion? The pain felt almost physical, like something vital had been ripped out of my chest. I wrapped my arms around myself, rocking slightly in the chair, fighting the urge to break completely. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, I reached for my phone with trembling fingers. There was only one person I could call. I opened the video app and dialed Nana Marisol. She answered on the third ring. Her face appeared on the screen, warm brown eyes, silver-streaked hair pulled back neatly, the familiar backdrop of her cozy living room in Seville visible behind her. Blair, mi amor. Her voice softened immediately. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. I tried to speak, but the words caught in my throat. When they finally came out, they were broken, raw. Nana, they're trying to take the company, Mom and Lila. They're planning to sell the majority to Reid Carver, behind my back. They said I'm just the one who does the flowers, that I don't understand real business. My voice cracked on the last word. Nana listened in silence, her expression steady and gentle. She didn't interrupt. She never did. When I finished, the tears were flowing freely now. I felt exposed, small, and utterly exhausted. Listen to me, Blair, she said quietly, her Spanish accent wrapping around the English words like a warm blanket. Pain like this, it burns. It's supposed to. But you don't have to let it consume you. You have a choice right now. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. What choice, Nana? I feel so stupid, so blind. You're not stupid, she replied firmly. You're hurting. And hurt people make mistakes if they act too quickly. Breathe, mija. Feel everything you need to feel tonight. But tomorrow you decide who you want to be. Her words settled over me like cool rain on fevered skin. We talked for a long time. She didn't offer easy comfort or tell me to forgive. Instead, she asked sharp, honest questions that forced me to look deeper at my own worth, at the years I had given, at the quiet strength I had never fully claimed. By the time we ended the call, the storm inside me hadn't disappeared, but it had begun to change shape. The wild, chaotic anger was slowly cooling into something clearer, something sharper, something colder, not revenge yet, but the first quiet spark of resolve. I sat there in the darkness long after the screen went black, staring at the faint city lights of Austin through the window. The pain was still there, deep, aching, and very real. But beneath it, for the first time that night, I felt the faintest shift. A sense that maybe, just maybe, this betrayal wasn't the end of me. It might be the beginning of something I had never allowed myself to become. This part of the story reminds us that the deepest wounds often come from those we love most, and that in the quiet moments after the shock, when no one is watching, we discover who we truly are. The next morning came too quickly. Sunlight filtered through the studio windows, casting long golden beams across the polished floors. I stood in front of the mirror in my private bathroom, staring at my own reflection. My eyes were still slightly swollen from the night before, but I had covered the traces well with careful makeup. I practiced the smile. It looked almost natural. Almost. Inside, everything still felt raw, like an open wound that hadn't begun to scab. But the storm Nana Marisol helped calm had left behind something steadier, a cold, focused clarity I had never felt before. I wasn't ready to explode. I was ready to prepare. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in nearly 3 years. Theo Brennan answered on the second ring. His voice was warm, surprised, and instantly familiar. The same steady tone that had once talked me through my worst all-nighters in college. Blair Solano, to what do I owe this unexpected pleasure? I kept my voice light, even though my fingers gripped the phone too tightly. Theo, I need your help. Not as a friend this time, as a lawyer. There was a short pause. When he spoke again, the playful tone had vanished. Tell me everything. We met that same afternoon at a quiet cafe tucked away on the east side of Austin, far from the usual downtown crowd. I chose a corner table where no one could easily overhear. Theo listened without interrupting as I recounted the conversation I had overheard, my voice low and steady despite the knot in my stomach. He didn't offer pity. He asked precise questions about corporate structure, share distribution, board voting rights, and every conversation I could remember about Reid Carver. By the end of our meeting, he had taken careful notes and looked at me with quiet respect. You're not overreacting, Blair, he said softly. This is serious. If they move forward without proper disclosure, we have grounds, but we need evidence. Solid, undeniable evidence. I nodded slowly. That night, after everyone else had left the studio, I began the real work. I sat alone in my office with the door locked. The only sound was the soft clicking of my keyboard and the occasional hum of the air conditioning. One by one, I accessed the company servers using my administrator privileges no one had thought to limit because they never imagined I would look. I found the emails, hidden threads between Mom, Lila, and Reid Carver. Discussions about valuation numbers that conveniently left out my contributions. Draft contracts with clauses that would strip me of decision-making power while keeping my name on the branding. Whispers about managing Blair's expectations and making the transition smooth. Each new message felt like another small cut. But this time, I didn't cry. I saved everything. Screenshots, timestamps, metadata. I forwarded copies to a private encrypted drive Theo had set up for me. My hands moved with mechanical precision, even as my heart still ached with the betrayal. During the day, I became someone else entirely. I smiled more warmly at Mom when she stopped by my office to discuss the upcoming summer events. I brought Lila her favorite oat milk latte without being asked. I asked gentle questions about their weekends, laughed at their jokes, and even complimented the new vendor proposals they brought in. Every kind word felt like walking on broken glass. There were moments when fear crept in, sharp and sudden. What if they noticed the change in my eyes? What if one careless glance gave me away? What if I wasn't strong enough to keep pretending? But every time doubt rose, I remembered Nana's words. Breathe, feel it, then use it. So I kept breathing, I kept smiling, and quietly, methodically, I built my case. Theo called me late one evening after reviewing the files I had sent. "You've done more than enough for now," he said, his voice serious. "We have a clear trail. But Blair, this won't be easy. These are your mother and sister. Once you pull the trigger, things will never be the same again." I stood by the window, looking out at the Austin skyline glowing against the darkening sky. "I know," I whispered. There was a long silence between us. Then Theo spoke again, gentler this time. "You're not the same girl I knew in college anymore, are you?" I closed my eyes for a moment. "No," I said quietly. "I'm not." As the weeks passed, the tension inside me grew thicker, heavier. Every friendly lunch with Lila felt like a performance. Every casual conversation with Mom carried the weight of unspoken lies. I was walking a razor's edge between maintaining normalcy and protecting myself. Yet beneath the exhaustion and the lingering pain, something new was taking root. A quiet strength. A cold determination. The victim I had been that first night was slowly fading. In her place, someone far more dangerous was beginning to emerge. Someone who understood exactly how much power silence could hold. This chapter of the story shows us that the most dangerous thing a person can do after betrayal is nothing at all. Because while the world sees you smiling, you may be quietly rewriting the rules of the game. 3 months had passed. The night air in Austin felt perfect, warm but gentle, carrying the faint scent of jasmine and lake water. String lights twinkled softly through the trees in the elegant garden venue overlooking Lake Travis. White linen tables, fresh floral arrangements I had personally overseen, and soft jazz floating from hidden speakers created an atmosphere that looked like pure magic. Legacy and new beginnings. That was the theme I had chosen for our 12-year anniversary celebration. Everyone who mattered was there. VIP clients in designer dresses, longtime vendors, influential partners, and of course, my family. Mom looked elegant in soft cream silk. Lila wore a sleek black dress that made her appear confident and composed. Reid Carver arrived in a tailored suit, smiling that polished investor smile as he shook hands with guests. I moved through the crowd like I belonged there, because tonight I did. My heart beat steadily now, not with the wild panic of 3 months ago, but with something much quieter, much colder. When the time came, I stepped onto the small wooden stage at the edge of the garden. The microphone felt cool in my hand. The lights dimmed slightly, casting a warm glow over my face. I smiled. The same practiced smile I had worn for weeks. "Good evening, everyone," I began, my voice calm and warm, carrying easily across the garden. "Thank you for being here to celebrate 12 years of Solano Events. This company has been my heart and soul since the day we opened our doors." There was polite applause. I saw Mom nod approvingly from her table. Lila raised her glass slightly in my direction. I let the moment linger just long enough. Then I continued, still smiling. "Tonight isn't just about looking back at what we've built. It's about looking forward, to new beginnings. So I prepared something special, a short video that captures the real story behind Solano Events, the hidden conversations, the quiet decisions, and the true legacy we're leaving behind." A large screen behind me lit up gently. The video began innocently enough. Beautiful time-lapse shots of weddings we had created, smiling clients, flowers blooming under my hands. Soft music played underneath. Then the tone shifted. Carefully edited clips appeared, not raw or aggressive, but elegant, precise, and devastating. First, an audio recording of Mom's voice, crystal clear. "Blair is wonderful at making things look magical, but running a real business, understanding contracts, valuations, That's never been her strength. The garden grew quieter. Next, Lila's laugh echoed through the speakers, light and dismissive. She'll be upset at first, but she'll get over it. We're doing what's best for the company. And for the family. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then came the emails, projected clearly, redacted just enough to protect legal sensitivity, but the meaning unmistakable. Conversations about transferring majority control to Reid Carver, plans to manage Blair's expectations, numbers that deliberately undervalued my 12 years of work. The music faded completely. The screen showed one final simple slide, a timeline of the secret negotiations, ending with the proposed contract that would have left me with almost no say in the company I had built from nothing. Silence fell over the entire garden like a heavy curtain. I stood there, still smiling softly, but my eyes were clear and steady. Reid Carver's face had gone deathly pale. His usual confident posture crumbled as he stared at the screen, then at me, his mouth slightly open in shock. Mom sat frozen in her chair, one hand pressed against her chest, her elegant face drained of all color. For the first time in years, she looked truly small. Lila's glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the stone path. The sound was shockingly loud in the dead quiet. She didn't move to clean it up. Her eyes were wide with disbelief and rising panic as she stared at me. I let the silence stretch for several long seconds. Then I spoke again, my voice still gentle, but now carrying an unmistakable edge of steel beneath the warmth. Legacy isn't just about what we build. It's about who we become when no one is watching. Tonight, I choose a new beginning. One where Solano Events remains under the leadership of the person who actually created it. I look directly at Mom and Lila. And I choose it. On my own terms. The tension in the air was electric. No one clapped. No one moved. The only sound was the soft lapping of lake water against the shore and the distant hum of night insects. I could see the exact moment reality crashed down on them. Mom's lips trembled, as if she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. Lila's face flushed deep red, then went ghostly white again. Fear, shame, and anger all fighting for control. Reid Carver stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the stone. He looked like he wanted to say something, but thought better of it. Instead, he turned and walked quickly toward the exit, shoulders stiff with humiliation. I remained on stage, breathing slowly, letting the weight of the moment settle over everyone. This wasn't rage, this wasn't chaos, this was precision. This was the quiet power of someone who had been underestimated for far too long, finally stepping into the light. This part of the story delivers the moment we all secretly wait for, when the person who was quietly dismissed finally reveals just how carefully they had been watching and how completely they had prepared. The morning after the celebration, the garden was quiet again. Only the soft rustle of leaves and the distant call of birds remained. I stood alone near the edge of the lake where the stage had been, the string lights now turned off and carefully packed away. The weight of the previous night still hung in the air like morning mist, but I felt lighter than I had in years. Later that week, I called a formal board meeting at the studio. The room felt different now, brighter, somehow sharper. Mom and Lila sat across from me, their faces pale and guarded. Theo Brennan sat quietly at my side, his presence steady and professional. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I have purchased Reid Carver's shares, I said calmly, sliding the signed documents across the polished table. Effective immediately, I hold full controlling interest in Solano Events. The silence that followed was heavy. Mom's hands trembled slightly as she looked at the papers. Lila stared at me with wide eyes, as if seeing me for the first time. The confident younger sister I had always known seemed suddenly small and uncertain. "You bought him out?" Lila whispered, her voice cracking. "Yes," I replied softly. "With my own resources. The company stays mine. The legacy stays mine." Vivian Solano, my mother, lowered her gaze. For a long moment, she said nothing. When she finally spoke, Her voice was quiet and broken in a way I had rarely heard. "I never thought you were capable of this, Blair." The words carried no anger, only a deep, painful realization. I looked at both of them for a long time. The old pain was still there. The betrayal, the years of being quietly dismissed, the nights I had cried alone after carrying their burdens. But the burning need to destroy them had faded. "I won't take this to court," I said gently. "I won't drag our family name through public scandal, but things will be different now." I paused, letting the weight settle. Trust, once broken, is not easily rebuilt. You taught me that, without meaning to. Mom's eyes filled with tears she tried hard to hold back. Lila looked away, her jaw tight, fighting emotions she wasn't ready to name. They left the meeting room quieter than they had ever been. No dramatic scenes, no shouting, just the slow, heavy footsteps of two women beginning to understand the true cost of their choices. In the weeks that followed, I made careful changes. I appointed Theo Brennan as my strategic advisor. His calm intelligence and loyalty became the steady foundation I had been missing. Together, we began reshaping Solano Events, moving beyond traditional weddings into meaningful experiential events that reflected deeper stories and personal legacies. The company felt alive again, growing in new and exciting directions, and for the first time in 12 years, I allowed myself space to breathe. I took a 2-week trip to the mountains of Colorado, where I sat for hours with nothing but a sketchbook and the sound of wind through pine trees. I started painting again, something I had given up long ago. Colors returned to my life in ways I had forgotten were possible. I began meeting new people, not as the reliable Blair who fixed everything for everyone, but as a woman learning to receive care instead of only giving it. Some relationships stayed light and joyful. Others deepened slowly, built on honesty rather than sacrifice. One quiet evening, several months later, I stood on the balcony of my new office on the top floor of the renovated studio building. The Austin skyline stretched out before me, glowing with thousands of warm lights against the deep Texas night. The wind brushed gently across my face, carrying the faint scent of rain that hadn't yet fallen. I thought about the girl I had been that night in the dark office, shaking, heartbroken, questioning her own worth. I thought about the fear, the doubt, and the crushing weight of feeling invisible to the people who were supposed to love me most. That girl was still part of me, but she no longer defined me. I had not destroyed my mother or my sister. I had simply stopped letting their limited view of me limit who I could become. In choosing control instead of chaos, forgiveness with boundaries instead of blind mercy, I had reclaimed something far more valuable than revenge. I had reclaimed myself. Below, the city lights twinkled like stars brought down to earth. Somewhere out there, Mom and Lila were living with the consequences of their choices. I hoped, in time, they would grow from this pain the way I had, but their journey was no longer mine to carry. This was my chapter now. As I stood there, breathing in the cool night air, a quiet sense of freedom washed over me. Deep, genuine, and entirely my own. The kind of strength that doesn't need applause or approval to exist. This final part of the story leaves us with a gentle but powerful truth. When those closest to you underestimate and betray you, the most profound victory is not in breaking them. It is in rising so completely into your own power that their opinion no longer has the ability to dim your light. You don't need to destroy anyone to win. Sometimes the greatest revenge is simply becoming the woman they never believed you could be. Whole, free, and quietly unstoppable. Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. Thank you for giving your time to this story. Some journeys shape us, and we hope this one left a mark on your heart. There are more paths ahead, more legends of love, hardship, and redemption beneath the western sky. Please subscribe, leave your thoughts, and travel with us once again. Thank you, and God bless. Aviso Legal. Disclaimer. The stories presented here are creative expressions and may mix historical inspiration with dramatized scenes. AI tools contribute to some elements of voice, imagery, and structure, but every published story is refined by editors and creators to ensure authentic emotional impact. We honor YouTube's policies and do not generate deceptive likenesses or artificial depictions of real people. All audiovisual components are legally licensed. Any use, redistribution, or alteration of this content must be granted through written consent. Your presence here means a lot. Thank you for supporting artistic storytelling.